Hey guys, today's video is a complete tier list for Rogue Company Season 4, and this one is going all the way up to our newest Rogue Umbra. This list is a mix of my personal opinions as well as the meta within the game, so of course, if you at any point don't agree with my tier list, the comments down below are open for you guys to give your opinions on my list or even make up your own little list. That's all guys, without further ado, let's get into the tier list. First up we've got Dallas. Now I'm not going to take in the actual weapons these rogues have from the beginning due to weapon mastery now being a thing. We'll mainly be looking at the overall weapon classes they possess, like assault rifles or shotguns, plus their 2 abilities and then maybe some perks and gadgets. I've put Dallas in the S tier rank. His target finder ability mixed with his recharge passive ability allow you to go on some crazy killing streaks in pubs, plus he's seen as one of the better if not the best intel rogue, so if you're playing strategically he's also good at that. Plus he has 2 of the better weapon categories being the ARs and DMRs. Switchblade is next, and yet again another S tier rogue. Her Chaos Launcher is probably one of the most lethal abilities in the game, allowing you to easily deal damage to multiple enemies and or put enemies in certain positions you'd like them to be in. For example, if you have enemies behind cover or on a flank, you can easily restrict access to both cover or flanking routes by shooting her launcher there. Her fight and flight passive isn't special, but it's not the worst in the game, and her weapons are also some of the best categories. Saint is going to be within the B tier. His recent acquisition of Lifeline mixed with some new balance changes he received in the Umbra update puts him in a relatively good spot. Not awful, but not really amazing, and being in S tier. Personally, he's my go-to support rogue, but I think B tier suits him well. Talon will be going in the B tier as well. He recently received a rework which gave his radar dart the ability to reveal enemies both on the minimap and in-game with their silhouette, I guess you would say, but it's also gotten the radius in which it reveals enemy drastically reduced. The whole thing revealing both enemies on the minimap and in-game was a major buff in my opinion, but I feel like the radius being reduced drastically outweighs the pros of this change. He still possesses mag gloves, which may not be the best passive, but it's still very useful in many situations, and he rocks a DMR SMG combo, which is very nice to see. Sigrid is next, and I'm putting her in the D tier. I'm not doing this in spite of my hate for her or people who use her, but I genuinely feel like she's not really an amazing rogue. Sure, her ballistic shield can be useful and you can save yourself, you can get some shots on people, you can push an objective, but it's not really that useful. Her athletic ability is pretty bad, seeing as people can easily break or run around barbed wire, which gives you the slowness effect that she's immune to, and who really cares if you can move faster while crouched. I feel like her placement in D is pretty justified. Fixer's up next, and he will be going in the C tier. His thermal vision ability can be very situational and has him rely on his smokes a lot, and they tried to recently reduce that by allowing you to see enemy heat signatures around objects like walls and boxes, but I still feel like it really isn't crazy useful to use on its own. Plus his main sniper the tier is out of the game half the time, so there's definitely better sniper characters aka Phantom that you can choose besides him. Vi will be going in the B tier. She's one of the better defensive rogues, and her Vile Poison ability and her leeching poison passive can be super useful as it allows you to increase your health up to 125. She also possesses shotguns which are currently broken, so I would even suggest A tier, but I feel like B tier is fine. Anvil is going into the C tier. He's recently gotten a buff which allows him to have 2 shields down at once, but I still don't think this is enough to push him over the edge. There's definitely better defensive rogues to choose over him, and besides his shields and maybe even the MLX Maul, which now Mac can even have, there's not much to him. Timo will be our first rogue in A tier. The Rogue Company devs have done a great job at keeping him a consistent A to S tier rogue with balances to his abilities and weapons, and allowing his rogue to be used right off the bat for new players with no paywall is great. Some would argue putting him in S tier, but I think A tier was getting a little lonely, so he'll be fine in there. Kestrel will be going into the S tier. She has a little bit of a skill gap. I feel as if her Halo drones do need to be timed perfectly to be very useful, but she has a great weapon setup possessing ARs and SMGs, and her perks match her very nicely. Chalk is going to be a C tier rogue for me. His rage ability is super situational because yeah, sometimes you can self-revive and sometimes you're able to pick off a kill because you have more health, but other than that, I mean, it's not really amazing. His grip passive is also really useful to only him. I can't see any other rogue using it like a Dahlia, as no one else would find use in rolling when down unless there's a teammate behind cover, and if an enemy sees you rolling to cover with a enemy being there, they're obviously going to push you because they know you're getting revived. I think D tier might be a little too low for Chalk, so C tier fits him well. Lancer is obviously going to be in the S tier. She's the perfect run and gun rogue, having both shotguns and SMGs, and her elusive passive is probably, if not the best passive in the entire game. Plus, she's a top tier flanking rogue since she has both the quick and quiet ability and the padded steps perk on top of that. She's definitely an S tier rogue, and some would even say the best rogue in the entire game. I'm putting Scorch in the B tier. She's the only counter to all rogues who have incendiary grenades, as well as Switchblade's main ability due to her fireproof passive. Plus, her overheat ability gives you a few seconds of additional damage, and when timed perfectly, sometimes can even wipe out an entire team easily. She's definitely not an amazing rogue, but she does deserve her spot in the B tier. Trench will also be heading over to the B tier. His barbed wire grenades are easily broken and ran around, but they're still useful for locking down certain areas, especially in non-respawning game modes like Demolition. Plus, his gadget up passive allows you to either have an additional trip mine or APS, and both can be upgraded, so there's a chance at some point in a match you could have 3 trip mines or APSs. I also feel like he's on the same level as Vi as being one of the better choices for a defensive rogue. I had trouble ranking Phantom because I feel like sometimes she's an A tier rogue, sometimes she's a C tier rogue, so I put her smack dab in the middle at B. She's one of the highest skill gap rogues in the game, so Phantoms are either good or bad. They're usually not really a player that's right in between. Her nano smoke is really useful for revealing enemies and sometimes does a better job than most intel rogues, plus her Grievous Wounds passive is one of the top tier ones in the game. Once again, this one was hard because some Phantoms are S tier and some are D tier. It all depends on the person who's using her, but I feel like B is a very respectable position. Mac is up and he will be joining Sigrid in the D tier. His conviction cannot compare to the Maul, and yes, it can be swapped out, but that's still a point I wanted to talk about. His light bomb isn't amazing, and by the time you slowly plant it down, you're either dead or enemies have already gotten to cover. His only upsides are his standard issue passive, which is amazing for Dahlias to link up to, and his Claymore melee is really great for melee challenges that you get, but I feel like him being in D makes sense. Runway is next, and I've decided that she's going into the A tier. Her supply on demand ability is obviously useful, and many may not think that she's a traditional support rogue like Saint or Dahlia, but she's still very helpful. Plus, she has her fully loaded passive ability, which allows her to carry 2 primaries, and she holds both snipers and assault rifles. This gives a good runway the ability to dominate in both mid to longer range engagements easily. For example, if you run up on a Phantom, if she hasn't picked up any other weapon, the best that she can pull out is a pistol, and if she's obviously sniping, but if you run up on a runway, you best know that you're getting a KA-30 shoved in your face. Next up is our newest rogue, Umbra, and I've decided A tier is good for him. With the way his Bishop DMR and Spider Drone are going, I would say he even belongs in S tier, but I feel like both things are eventually going to be balanced in the next update, and after that he'll probably be in A tier. That's not even talking about his Siphon passive, which heals you when you earn a down or assist. This guy is definitely one of the top tier rogues in the game. Ronan is next, and she's going into the A tier. Just like Dima, the devs have done an amazing job at having the initial rogues you have access to being one of the top tier characters to use. Her ballistic knife is very versatile at allowing you to use it offensively or using it to cover flanks, plus she has that underground passive ability which allows her to counter all intel rogues. She also possesses both SMGs and ARs, so yeah, definitely an A tier rogue, arguably even S tier. Seeker's going in the B tier for me. I feel like he has maybe a little extra revealing ability compared to Talon, and many, make the case that he can also deal damage with his ability, but that's definitely a rare occurrence. No one goes out of their way to get damage or kills with Seeker's ability. So yeah, I feel like B's fun. He has his ricochet ability, which is really only useful if you're using bounce grenades or his arrow scanner. I feel like B tier is a very valid spot for Seeker. Next is Dahlia, who's going in the A tier. This one hurts because I personally prefer Saints, but I can see Dahlia is a much more useful and versatile support rogue. Her danger close ability allows her to pair with another teammate of her choice and heal them, and she obviously has that lifeline perk to do this easily. But the main selling point is her buddy system passive. She pretty much can use any passive in the entire game as long as that specific rogue who has that specific passive has been chosen and is on her team. This allows each game with Dahlia to feel new, and each time someone on the enemy team uses her, you can't just look at Dahlia as Dahlia, but you also have to see who she's pairing with. Second to last rogue is Glitch, who will be joining the A tier. His hack ability is so useful at shutting down abilities and gadgets, and even hacking rogues to make sure they cannot use any more abilities or gadgets during the duration of the hack. Plus, his intuition passive allows him to see gadgets and abilities through walls. He's definitely an A tier rogue. The final rogue is Cannon, and what a better place for him than D tier. He can also arguably be a C tier rogue, but I personally prefer him in D tier. His Gatling gun is very annoying as it both slows you down and is very hard to use, and is on the other end very OP because it does deal a ton of damage, and his Conflict Connoisseur passive is useful, but it's just not anything crazy. And the whole update that brought him in, it kind of broke our game, so I kind of hold him for that. That's all for my tier list. This is an overview of the entire thing, so if you agree, disagree, or simply just want to make your own list, feel free to do so down in the comments. Also, I'm starting a comment question of the day type thing for our videos. If you comment in today's video, you'll have a chance for a shout out in my next video within the intro. So, you can comment a question, comment you like the video, comment you don't like the video, whatever it is, comment something and there's a chance you'll be in the next video. That does wrap up things though. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like rating, hit that subscribe button for daily Rogue Company content. Comment down below what tier list you'd like for me to make next, and then finally be sure to join my Discord where you can chat with me and stay up to date with everything. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to give my video a watch, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.